Hi there, and welcome to Common Fitting Adjustments for the Carpe Diem dress. I'm Ray Cumby with Fit for Art Patterns, and I'm so glad you're here. And we are going to look at some shoulder adjustments right now. And in fact, this video will address the narrowing of the shoulder, both in the front and the back. So we will narrow the pattern in the front and the back at the shoulder line, so you can see if you need to have that done, how it is done. And then we will also change the facings, because when you are making a Carpe Diem dress and it has to have a facing, then you have to also alter the facing so that it fits onto the pattern that you have adjusted so that it fits you better. So enjoy this little pattern work exercise, and I hope you will take advantage of it if it is an adjustment that you need for your narrow shoulders. We're going to narrow the shoulder on this medium AB front, and then also narrow the back and narrow the facings. All of those different pieces have to be narrowed if you are narrowing all the way into the shoulder. In the previous video, you watched as I took a scoop out of the front, and sometimes that's all people need. They don't necessarily need the shoulder narrowed. And if you're used to using other patterns and you're always narrowing the shoulder, I would advise you to make a mock-up of ours first. Our shoulder is fairly narrow already because of the way the square armhole sits. So you would want to double check and make sure that you do in fact need to narrow it, but some people will still need to narrow the shoulder. And so we're going to narrow this shoulder by 3/8 of an inch, easing down into the dart area. And then we will do the same thing on the back and on the two facings, so the shoulder will fit right. The facings we have are for the sleeveless. Sometimes we might even want to narrow the shoulder on the sleeveless just to have a little more cut-in look. That is often something people prefer in a sleeveless garment, a little more of a racer look. And so you could certainly do that make a sleeveless front that comes in a little bit more in the front at the shoulder and in the back at the shoulder. But if you were putting a sleeve in, you would want to keep it the same. So then you would want to create a whole separate front. That said, we are going to come in, as I said, 3/8 inch. We're going to presume that we want a 3/8 inch adjustment. And I'm going to define the 5/8 inch seam line and the 3/8 inch in here. And we're going to create sort of a little edge there so we know what we're doing. And working from the seam allowances is always smart, but if you know how much you need to take off just in general, perhaps you had put on one of our jacket mock-ups. Even though this is the dress, we will size people in our system using our jacket mock-ups. If you see us at an expo or sewing show, we always have our jacket mock-ups there, and they will guide you in the size you need, whether you're making the dress or the knit top or the jacket itself. And so I have looked here for a nice shaping line that will get me to this 3/8 inch adjustment at the seam line of 5/8 inch. And I'm going to just draw that new line in here. I found a nice one that comes right down here and runs right along the existing line. And so we have now narrowed the shoulder. If you knew that you also needed to scoop that area just a little bit, we might want to make a little additional inroads here right around this. Usually we would give you a number at the high balance line. So if we were coming in, say, 1/4 inch or 3/8 right here, then we could draw that and try to find a new line that would ease us out into that scoop right here. And this is something a lot of people really like, a close fit in that hollow of the shoulder, but you do need to be careful to not get it so closely fitting that you are looking a little distorted. So here we have added that scoop. You could choose whichever front you want, in which if you needed the scoop, you would be here. If you didn't need the front, this other line is a little bit more gentle, a little less jolty, but our bodies are all different, and our patterns need to reflect what our bodies do, not just what looks like a beautiful pattern. And that is something I hope you always remember, that we know what a base pattern that's been drafted for a very balanced body looks like, but most of us don't have those sort of balanced bodies, and so we would need to change the pattern so it fits us better. Okay, so I have the back pattern piece right here, and I'm going to pull it here into the screen, and we're going to look at it, and we're going to adjust it to match this front pattern piece. Now, it doesn't have to match all the way down, but it definitely has to match here at the shoulders. And so we've already done a round back in this pattern. We're going to draw our seam line here, just so we have a note of what it is, and I'm going to put that 5/8 inch right there also. But we're going to come in 3/8. That's what we came in on the other one. So let's measure that 3/8 inch from the seam line here, and that would be right from the edge to here. That would be right there is our 3/8, 2/8 inch from our 5/8. And so now we need to find a line that gets us smoothly and easily from here up to here. These are sometimes tricky lines, but that looks like a nice one right there. We're lining right up along the this cutting line, and we're going to come up here and create our new cutting line. And I'm going to just give ourselves a little extra in that seam allowance. What really matters is that we're at the right place there. And so there you see we have a new line here then. Also, I'm going to put a little piece of tape here because that edge of that round back adjustment seems to be a little loosey-goosey. Let's close that there. Okay. And so here we have adjusted now for a narrow shoulder. And we're going to trim this away. When you make these adjustments and you know you need them, you need to really trim it away so that you are not getting to the fabric with your pattern and going, oh, which line am I supposed to use? So we're going to actually use the non-scooped line here. If we needed the scooped line, we would just come in and cut along that line. And maybe what we'll do is test it first if we weren't sure. And then we're going to also change this line. And we're going to walk this. It's always smart when you change two pattern pieces to walk them and make sure they still line up along that seam line. And so we're actually going to draw the seam line also onto the front. We've not done that yet, but we're going to do that. 5/8 inch seam line. Our seam lines are always 5/8 unless otherwise specified. We try to be very consistent so you don't get thrown off. Okay, so we have our two seam lines there, and we're going to line them up here to make sure that they match at the seam line. And they do match beautifully. Look, we have exactly what we need right here, and our two seams back behind there. So we know that the pattern is going to walk properly with our narrowed shoulder adjustment. And now we have to narrow the facings so we make sure that we have the right facing. And so I have traced off the facing here too, both of them. And we don't necessarily have to measure. We can just lay this on top of the piece underneath and draw our new line on here. And I'm going to do that right here. Okay. And then we're going to take that back facing and lay it here also. Line it up at the neck, and this one has that little dart in for the round back adjustment. We definitely adjusted the pattern for that also. Don't leave that dart out or the neck edge will be too wide. And now we're going to lay that there, and we're going to trim those two pieces off. And then we have done everything we need to narrow the shoulder for, in this case, a sleeveless dress. Which often benefits from a little bit of a narrowing of the shoulder if you're not putting the sleeve in. Totally depends on how you like your shoulders to sit on your body when you have a sleeveless dress. Alright, so we have done the pattern work to narrow the shoulder. If that's something you need, and you know that that is something you need in the Fit for Art pattern universe, then make sure you do that before you cut everything else out. Thank you so much for being here to watch this video about narrowing the shoulder of your Carpe Diem dress or tunic pattern, if that is something that you need. I was happy to demo it for you, and I hope that it is clear and you will be able to do this adjustment if it is something that you need. Remember, your pattern work needs to be careful and clean, and your pattern needs to remain flat, and you'll have to change the facings as well as the dress when you do this alteration. Good luck and happy sewing!